This one here is called the Silent Princess. It's a rare, endangered species. Despite our efforts, we can't get them to grow domestically yet. The princess can only thrive out here, in the wild.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this painting tutorial. I'm Dana, and today I'll be showing you guys how to paint a silent princess flower from the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Before we get started, you're going to need some supplies. First, you'll need something to paint on. I used a small canvas board for mine. You'll also need some brushes. You'll need a small cup or jar for some water. And you'll need some paper towels. I have cool Star Wars paper towels. You'll need something to put your paint on. And of course, you'll need paint.
I'm using acrylic paint today in the colors titanium white, phthalo blue, cadmium yellow, and medium violet. For my background color, I'm going to start with some white. Then I'm going to mix in some purple. And I'm just going to do a light purple background. You could do any color background you wanted. Alright, I'm going to apply the background color in short brush strokes, creating some texture. It's going to fill in the whole background with this color. And I want to add some lighter areas and some darker areas just by adding a little bit more white for the lighter areas and a little more purple for darker areas. And this will create almost like a light source coming from that top left corner. So if you're following along, just go ahead and fill up that whole canvas with your color. You could also just paint a nice, lovely landscape in the background and make it look more like the landscape from the game. But I just wanted to keep this really simple and kind of focus on the flower. So I'm just doing a plain background. Now I'm just putting some finishing touches on the background. And then once you finish up your background, you're going to want to let the paint dry. Okay, and we're back. So now I'm going to make some green, and I'm going to actually start painting in the flower. Mix in some yellow and some blue to make green. Alright, so now you want to go ahead and start painting in that flower stem. And of course I'm using a reference for my flower. I'm just going by the flower from the game. But I mean, you could apply this method to painting any flower, really. Now here I'm adding a second piece of the stem that comes out. And also going to add some leaves. And through the magic of editing, I can speed this up so it's not so boring for you guys to watch. And I'm going to start adding these little leaves up here. This is where the flower petals are going to grow out of later. going to do these longer, kind of thin, curved leaves hanging down from the main stem. Okay, now I'm gonna make a darker green just by adding a little bit more blue. And this will be for the shadows. So I want to add this darker green down along the stem and really anywhere where I think that I would see some shadows. So if we imagine our light sources coming from above the flower, the shadows are going to be on the undersides of the flower shapes. So you can see that the flower stems are getting some shadow. Also, the leaves will be getting some shadow on these areas that are kind of curving under. And I just want to point out, the brush I'm using is a small angled brush. I tend to just like that style of brush because it has a nice sharp edge to it, so it's good for getting nice clean lines. But you may have another brush that you are more comfortable with or you prefer. So of course, use whatever kind of brushes you like. Just continuing to add these shadows where I feel the shadows would be based off of our light source. Now I'm going to make a lighter green. That way I can add some highlights. So I'm just adding more yellow and a little bit of white to the green. And now I'm going to add highlights where I think the sun would be hitting and where I think I would see a lot of light. So this is going to be on the top sides of the leaves and anything that is sort of facing our light source. So you can see I've added a highlight to both the stems, and now I'm also adding a highlight to these leaves. And the highlights and the shadows are going to help make our flower look more three-dimensional. I'm adding a couple extra leaves on this flower bud. These are some leaves that are in the back. And it'll probably be mostly covered up by the flower petals once those go in there. But just to kind of create the idea that there are some leaves behind, I'm just adding them in now. You could easily add them in after you draw in the flower petals as well. Okay, we're back again, and now we're going to actually start painting in the flower petals. So we'll finally start making our flower look like a flower. So I'm just starting with plain white, and I'm actually still using that same brush. And I'm just going to draw out the basic shape of each of the petals with white, and then I'll go in later and add all the detail. So if you're familiar with the game and you're familiar with the flower, you'll know that it has white petals with blue accents in it. Of course, you could customize your flower to do any accent color, any color petals you wanted. Again, I'm just following along with the flower style that's in the game. which if you haven't played the game, it's absolutely beautiful. You should definitely play it. It's so much fun. I've spent hours playing it, and I absolutely cannot wait for them to make a sequel to it. Alright, so continuing on with the flower, there's 5 petals on this flower, and they're kind of all going in different directions just to make our flower look like it's a little bit more natural, and that all the petals look a little different, and they're all at a slightly different angle. I'm also going to add in the little flower bud here. Alright, so now we're going to mix up a little bit of the light blue and start adding in that accent color to the leaves. So I'm mixing up some blue and white, and I actually put a touch of yellow in there just to kind of make my blue a little bit more teal colored. Kind of like a more of an aqua color, I guess. I'm going to add this, and coming from the center of the flower, kind of radiating out. And you'll see I kind of keep adjusting the color to get it just the right shade of blue. And I also go in with a little bit of white to blend it a little so that the colors kind of mix together. And of course, acrylic does tend to dry pretty fast, so you do want to work fairly quickly for blending. And I'm keeping the blue mostly in sort of the center of the flower, and then you'll see the outside edges of the petal remain more white. So now I'm going to make a new color, adding some purple, some blue, and some white. And this is sort of a lighter, almost like a little bit of a lavender shade. And this is to create some shadows. And it's also gonna help to create almost like a curved look, so that it looks like the petals are sort of curved and creating a little bit of shadow. Also, because I don't want to leave a lot of just pure white for the petals, I want to make sure that I'm only using pure white for like the brightest highlights. And so I'm using this sort of more lavender color. And you can see I'm also going back in with some white and blending it. Again, because acrylic dries so fast, so by the time I'm getting back to this part of the petal, it's already dry, and I want to make kind of a soft shadow in there. So I'll just take a little bit on my brush at a time and blend it with some white, and also using my finger to blend. or at least a darker color to create some more shadows. So you can see I'm kind of mixing some colors there, and I took a little bit of that color I was mixing and just wanted it to be a little darker, so I just made a new little pile, adding blue, there's some purple in there, a touch of yellow. There's a little bit of white just from the previous mixture on the brush, but by the time I make this new color, it's a bit darker, and you can see I just added a little bit of white in there. I just want it to be a darker shadow color for the underside of this blossom over here. So now I'm mixing up some green again, adding a little bit more yellow and white. And I'm gonna add the stamen of the flower. So that's the little bits of the flower in the center that stick out, holds the pollen. Again, I'm adding in this main one here. And then there are also these smaller little bits coming out of the center of the flower, going all the way around. So adding those ones in as well. And now I'm going to make a little bit of that blue color again. The same color we were using earlier for the blue parts of the flower. And I'm just going to continue to kind of fine-tune the blue areas of the flower. And I've switched brushes now. So I'm now using a little round brush. And this is just to kind of get in for those little small details. So now I'm mixing up a little bit of a darker green, and I'm going to use this green to create a shadow on the center parts that we just added that stamen. So we want to add shadows and highlights to every part of the flower. So we'll go ahead and start with some shadows, help define these little lines here. Now I'll go and highlight them, starting with a little bit of yellow. I'm just adding a little bit of white to the yellow, helps make the yellow a little less see-through. So I'm using this light yellow for my highlights. Again, just want to give everything a shadow and a highlight. Now I'm going to take some yellow and add in the little bits of pollen at the top. Just kind of dabbing it in. And take a little bit of white and add a little highlight to that. So then you can take a little bit of purple mixed with the yellow, and you'll see it makes a darker yellow, kind of a golden color, and we'll add shadows. And a little bit more highlight. Next, I'm going to make a new blue color. This is going to be more of an aqua color, mixing some yellow, some blue, and some white. We're going to add even more small details to our flower. So at the end of each of these little green bits here, there is a little circle. I'm just going to add that to my flower. And you can see you can add a little bit of extra white to the color, make it a little lighter, add highlights. can add more blue to make the color darker and use that to create some little shadows. And you'll want to continue going around the flower and adding one of these little shapes to each of the little green stem shapes or stamen shapes coming out of the center of the flower. And now, of course, you can go back and add some more detail into your flower petals if you like. Add some more little highlights. And now I'm going back to that light green color. I'm going to add more highlights to the stems and to the leaves. So I really want to make some nice lighter areas where it looks like some sunlight is hitting these leaves and really put that pretty pop of light green color on there. Really makes it look like light is kind of shining on the leaves. And you can see I'm adding this highlight also to the stems. And of course, don't forget the little leaves down at the bottom. They want to get some light too. Alright guys, so now you just want to go in and finish up any final little details, and that's the last part of painting the Silent Princess flower. So there you go, now you have your own little piece of Hyrule to brighten up any room.
Alright guys, well thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, hit that like button, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye! Say bye, Bella. Bye!